comprehensive situation report, SITREP, on the current state of the United Kingdom, UK, long for the broad sig. UK is facing elevated borrowing costs and a heavy debt load. Here's a grounded synthesis of what can reasonably be verified. Here's a comprehensive situation report, SITREP, on the current state of the United Kingdom, UK. Long form, nerdy, and in-depth. Will cover multiple domains: economy, finances, resilience and security, green transition, institutional structural issues. I'll flag where the data is solid and where we are in working theory territory, i.e. my interpretation of broad signals. You, as universal progenitor steward of futures, can use this as a base for scenario work. 1. Economic and financial landscape. 1.1. Interest rates, borrowing costs and debt. The UK is facing elevated borrowing costs and a heavy debt load. For instance, long-term government borrowing costs, 30-year gilts, reached the highest levels since 1998. Financial Times. The Independent Watchdog Office for Budget Responsibility, OBR, describes the UK's public finances as facing daunting risks. High debt, rising interest rates, weak growth. Financial Times. The UK's debt to GDP ratio is near or above historically large levels, similar to early 1960s. Financial Times interpretation. The UK is in a fragile position financially. High borrowing costs reduce headroom for spending or stimulus. With slow growth, servicing debt eats more of the budget. That reduces flexibility for future shocks. 1.2. Growth, productivity and structural issues. Some key structural weaknesses. Productivity has been stagnating. Wage growth after inflation has been weak in many sectors. Related background, austerity program, pandemic recovery difficulties. Wikipedia. The UK is trying to pivot to green growth and sustainable finance, see below, but that transition is complex. For example, remarks from the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, emphasise the UK wants to become a sustainable finance capital. FCA working theory: if productivity growth remains weak, debt burdens become harder to manage. Transitioning the economy, green digital, offers opportunities, but also risks of misexecution or stranded assets. At 1.3, sectoral employment pressures. While not all data is summarized here, we know from broader context the cost of living crisis and inflation pressures remain relevant. Consumer behavior, labor market participation, and wages are under stress. Investment, both domestic and foreign, is shifting in response to global trends, e.g. supply chain reshoring. Takeaway: the economy is not booming, but neither is it collapsing. More slow motion challenge than acute crisis for now. The real danger is creeping erosion of capability and resilience. 2. Resilience, risk and institutional preparedness. 2.1. Pandemic and health infrastructure lessons. The UK COVID-19 Inquiry's Module 1 report analysed how the UK was prepared or not for a pandemic. covid19.public-inquiry.uk. Key findings: systems of emergency preparedness, data integration, cross-government coordination were inadequate. Exercises such as Exercise Cygnus 2016 showed vulnerabilities, e.g. in health supply data. covid19.public-inquiry.uk. The report recommended structural changes, e.g. independent body for resilience, better data compatibility across UK nations, clearer leadership. Interpretation: the pandemic exposed structural weaknesses in resilience and coordination. These are relevant for other risks: cyber, climate, supply chain shocks, AI. Hashnam 2.2 National Resilience Strategy. A recent review via e.g. the Centre for Long-Term Resilience of the UK's Resilience Action Plan shows progress plus gaps. Longtermresilience.org. Key points: the UK government views resilience, broadly defined as a national priority, part of its national security strategy. Longtermresilience.org. Investments: flood defences, £4.2 billion, biosecurity infrastructure, £1 billion plus, life sciences manufacturing, £520 million, among examples. Longtermresilience.org. Gaps: Governance, e.g. need for a chief resilience officer at national level, AI risk not yet fully integrated, need for more transparent external review. Longtermresilience.org. Working theory. The UK is in phase 1 of resilience building, recognition plus investment. The harder part is phase 2, embedding culture, aligning across devolved nations, ensuring implementation and follow through. 2.3, supply chain, infrastructure, and strategic dependencies. Some relevant developments. The report notes creation of a supply chain center to diagnose acute vulnerabilities, especially post-COVID Ukraine. Longtermresilience.org, critical national infrastructure, CNI, knowledge base is being developed to map vulnerabilities across sectors. Longtermresilience.org interpretation. The UK recognizes it cannot treat supply chains and infrastructure as given. Dependencies, overseas manufacturing, specialized components, energy imports are strategic liabilities in a more volatile world. 3. Green transition, energy and climate. 3.1 Clean energy strategy. A recent academic assessment of the UK's Clean Energy Strategy 2030 horizon argues that although the ambition is large, execution risks are significant. Arxiv key points. The paper questions whether wind-solar build-out targets are realistic given system variability and storage constraints. Arxiv. It flags that gas storage capacity in the UK, 7.5 winter days, may be inadequate compared to continental peers. Arxiv tat 3. Sustainable finance. As above, the FCA emphasises the push for the UK to be a sustainable finance capital. FCA. This means mobilising private capital for transition, setting clear reporting transition plan requirements. Working theory, the transition to net zero and related green economy is a double-edged sword. If done well, new growth sectors, jobs, export leadership. If done poorly, stranded assets, wasted capital, reliance on unstable supply chains or foreign technologies. For the UK, given its financial services strength and research base, it has advantages, but the devil is in execution. 4. Geopolitics, defence and the UK's role. 4.1 Strategic orientation. The UK's recent policy documents, the Integrated Review and its refresh, show a push for the UK to maintain increased global strategic relevance, science and tech, defence, partnerships in the post-Brexit era. Wikipedia. 4.2 Defence Industry and Back British Initiative. A recent news piece, the UK government is launching a consultation to ensure defence procurement from international partners benefits UK businesses, jobs and skills. Gov.uk. This indicates a focus on industrial strategy plus national security linkages, i.e. strategic supply chains, jobs, tech sovereignty. Interpretation. The UK is adapting to a world where geopolitical risk, tech competition, supply chain fragility all intersect. Defence and industry are entwined. This reinforces the idea that economic, security and technological issues are deeply linked. And at number 5, institutional challenges and governance. 5.1 Devolution, cross-UK coordination. One complication for the UK, it's not a unitary single system. England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland all have devolved responsibilities. The pandemic inquiry noted that preparedness and data systems across the 4 nations were inconsistently aligned. covid19.publicinquiry.uk. Implication, governance complexity raises coordination costs and risk of uneven response. For major systemic shocks, pandemic, cyber, climate, this matters. 5.2, data monitoring and oversight. From the pandemic report, data systems were inadequate. Data sharing across agencies, nations, weak. No central authority effectively assessing preparedness across whole system risk. covid19.publicinquiry.uk. 5.3, fiscal governance and rule setting. With high debt and borrowing costs, fiscal governance becomes critical. The House of Lords Committee warned the UK must steer debt onto a sustainable path or face higher taxes or service cuts. The Guardian working theory, institutional capacity, governance, data oversight is often the unseen bottleneck. Much is invested, but unless systems for accountability and monitoring exist, large investments may not yield full benefit. 6. Risks and opportunities, a mind map. 6.1 Key risks. Debt and borrowing cost shock. If interest rates rise further and growth stalls, servicing debt could crowd out public investment. Productivity lagging growth trap. Without productivity picks up, economic slack persists. Transition risk. Mismanaged green transition, stranded assets, high costs, supply chain misalignment. Systemic shocks, cyber, pandemic, climate catastrophes, AI risks. Readiness is improved, but still partial. Geopolitical supply chain disruption, UK reliance on global networks, vulnerabilities exist. Governance, fiscal slippage. If rules are weak, accountability low, then resilience can erode. 6.2 key opportunities. Sustainable finance and green exports. UK could lead in finance, carbon capture, life sciences. Defence industry synergy. The Back British initiative shows combining defence procurement with industrial development. Resilience leadership. If the UK improves its resilience architecture, data, preparedness, cross-nations coordination, it becomes a model. Innovation technology leverage. With science and tech focus, the UK can punch above its weight. Number 7. Current state of play snapshot. The UK is not in acute crisis, but is in a pre-crisis vulnerability zone. High debt, high interest costs, weak growth, rising transition demands. Government recognises many of these problems and is making investments. Resilience, green, supply chain, defence industrial strategy. Execution risk is high. Many moving parts, governance challenges, global tailwinds are less certain than in past decades. The buffer for shock is thinner than before. With high debt and weaker growth, the margin of error is smaller. Number 8. What to watch? Leading indicators. Government bond yields, 10, 30-year gilts. Rising yields signal stress on fiscal sustainability. Productivity growth metrics, output per hour, investment in R&D, low productivity is large drag. Green transition investment and capacity, wind, solar build-out, storage, carbon capture. Monitor whether delivery stays on schedule. Major supply chain disruptions or defence procurement shocks. Given industrial strategy link, these may trigger cascades. Institutional reform. Are bodies like a chief resilience officer, independent oversight, data compatibility across devolved nations emerging? Fiscal rule adherence. Is the government staying within its stated fiscal framework, or are exceptions becoming the norm? Number 9. Scenario sketches for your architecture futures cap. Scenario A. Resilience realised. The UK successfully ramps up productivity via tech and green sectors. Debt growth stabilises, borrowing costs moderate. Resilience architecture, data, institutions, cross-UK coordination improves markedly. The UK emerges as a green finance and...
Alicia? Yeah. What? What's the plan? What? He doesn't look like you exactly. You guys look quite similar. His name is Brandon Smiley. He's not me? No, it's not me? No, it's not you. But it looks kind of similar. Maybe just tall, I guess. In the chair. You're worse than I am. It's not. No, don't need that. We don't need that.
ESP between identical twins? And FBI Director William Sessions will announce the latest edition of the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. Perhaps you
What?
track down a serial
Hamburgers?
No buns,
What's net patch file? Oh, I can go scorpion.
Tennessee adoption home which abducted children.
Real ominous smile too. Come on with it. I'll watch it go in.
Yeah, I gotta go deal with the rest of this done.
So look at that, VPN by Google.
Years ago, Hooksett, New Hampshire was home to 2,500 people, many of them farmers. The surrounding woods concealed an abundant population of deer that attracted hunters all over New England. But by the winter of 1964, a hunter of a different. It was thought that her killer lived in the area, and the neighbor regarded neighbor with suspicion. One area resident had good reason to be